What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I love talking about movies, and I love collecting movies. As you can see on those shelves back there, just past the Pac-Man machine, I have over 1,100 Blu-rays. But today, you clicked on a video that said Blu-ray collection update because I have 50 plus more Blu-rays to add to that Blu-ray collection. And I'm so excited to do this video with you guys today, but not without my trusty friend Monster. By the way, this is the only good Monster Energy juice. It's the only, just to be clear, it is the only good Monster. If you're like, well, no, Mike, have you tried? It sucks. This is the only good one, and it's even not that good. All right, with that said, we got some Monster. I got 50 movies to talk about. Let's do my Blu-ray collection update video right now. All right, guys, right off the top, we have Lone Survivor, and Lone Survivor stars Mark Wahlberg, and it is a true life story about a soldier who gets stranded and has to fight his way out of a really bad situation. There's 100 movies like this, but honestly, this one was a fun one, but I haven't seen this in about 10 years. Well, however long ago this came out, I actually saw it on bootleg while it was still in theaters. And I'm not proud of myself for watching bootleg movies, but here's the thing. Back then, I didn't have a lot of money to go to the theater. There was a guy at my job who's like, hey, for 20 bucks, you can get 5 movies, and they're all brand new. And they were terrible quality. And we all knew they were terrible quality, but we bought them anyway. So, Lone Survivor. I now have an actual copy of it. Moving on, guys, we have My Bloody Valentine 3D. I'm very excited to pick this up yesterday. In fact, of all the movies I picked up yesterday, this was my favorite one. I think they want $20+ for it on Amazon, and they only wanted $8 for it where I found it. And it came with the 3D glasses. In the back of it says, in theaters everywhere, October 23rd, 2009. For Saw 6, that's right, a Saw advertisement within My Bloody Valentine. A very smart advertising move. But My Bloody Valentine 3D, I was very excited to have this, finally. Moving on, we have Meet Joe Black. And Meet Joe Black stars Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. And honestly, this is a movie that I watched as a kid. Like, I had the double VHS set. I say as a kid, probably a teenager, but a double VHS set of Meet Joe Black and loved it. I loved everything about it. It's a very emotional story. The angel of death comes down to earth. I believe it takes over Brad Pitt's body after he gets killed. So it's not like it doesn't kill him, but like it takes over his body because he's close to someone who's close to Anthony Hopkins, and the angel of death is actually there for Anthony Hopkins. And in the end, the angel of death understands the meaning of life. So it's kind of a nice story too. I don't know. I've always enjoyed this movie. Moving on, we have Paranormal Activity. I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to start collecting the Paranormal Activity movies. So I think there's 4 of them in here. They're the better of the entire franchise. So that's a good thing. But Paranormal Activity, the first one, I mean, this movie was iconic. This movie kind of reset the standard for found footage, and I have another found footage film in here we're going to talk about in a little while, but this kind of set the standard for found footage, and then they just beat it to hell for the last 14 years. They really just beat this thing to death. I've really liked this when it came out. I liked the sequels, the follow-ups to it, the first few, and then it just slowly went downhill with the rest of the genre, unfortunately. Moving on, we have Hellfest, and Hellfest is a movie that I only saw once. I saw it on my way to Six Flags in Gurnee, Illinois. I saw it there, and the reason why I stopped and watched it on the way was because they had a Hellfest haunted house. And then I waited for 2 hours in the rain to get into this haunted house, and it was like 15 minutes. The movie itself was fine. I think they could have done a little more to make this movie a little more interesting. I liked all the different masks the guy had at the beginning of the movie, and I thought, okay, maybe we'll get to explore those different stories, but I don't think the movie did very well, so we never got any more. But I now own Hellfest, and it reminds me of that time that I stood in the rain for 2 hours. I don't know if that's a good or a bad memory. Moving on, we have Runaway Jury, starring John Cusack. And this is about, basically it's 12 Angry Men, just done a little differently. A guy's trying to manipulate a jury. He's the good guy, so it's okay to manipulate a jury in this case. That's all I remember from this movie, but it was a fun time. You know, I enjoyed it. Moving on, we have Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. And the reason I bought these movies was because I was watching Back to the Future with my wife. She had never seen it before, and we're watching it, and when Crispin Glover came on the screen, she goes, oh, that guy looks like that creepy dude from the Charlie's Angels movies. And I was like, Crispin Glover from the Charlie's Angels movies? But I had never actually seen these movies. I just knew he was in it. So I bought this 2-pack so we could watch them together, and she loves the Charlie's Angels movies, and I thought they were fine. They were a little over the top, kind kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of knew what they were, but I wasn't like the biggest fan. I was like, oh, all right, well, this is fine. This is a movie I probably won't go back to willingly, but who knows? One day my kids will be like, what's Charlie's Angels? And then I'll have to relive Cameron Diaz. All right, guys, next up we have King Arthur, and this is a movie I haven't seen yet, but I like period piece movies. I like swords and sandals movies. This may not be one of the better ones, but I'm excited to check it out eventually. All right, guys, next up we have Hostel Part 1 and Hostel Part 2. And typically I'm not a gore for the sake of gore, guys, but I thought Eli Roth did a great job with both of these films. I really like the concept of these people are just traveling to another country. They get caught up at whatever hostel they're at, and they get thrown into a room to be tortured by someone just paying for the privilege. These people aren't necessarily targeting them. They're just paying for the privilege to be able to torture somebody in another country. This single-handedly is the reason I'll never go to another country. Moving on, we have Bone Tomahawk. I've heard a lot about this movie, never actually seen it, so I can't really speak on it, but I'm excited to have it added to my collection and watch it eventually on a rainy day. Moving up, guys, we have Behind Enemy Lines. I think there's 6 of these, most of them produced by the WWE, but this is the original one. Was it Gene Hackman? Yeah, Gene Hackman and Owen Wilson are in this film together, and Owen Wilson gets trapped behind enemy lines and he has to get out of there. Kind of already talked about that with Lone Survivor. Again, it's a movie that Hollywood has made over and over and over, but I have a good time with them when they're done right. Next up, guys, we have Domino, and I thought I talked about this already in one of my Blu-ray videos, so if I have, I apologize, but this was on the list of movies I haven't talked about yet. So Domino, Keira Knightley, whatever happened to her? What's she doing these days? I have no idea, but I remember this being filmed in like an annoying way. Does that make sense? Like the way they used colors in this movie. Like I'll show you the back cover if you could see that there, it's focused, and the whole film is filmed in like this yellow tint, and I just remember being annoyed by it, but I bought it for my collection. Moving on, we have How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is one of 2 Grinch movies we're going to talk about today, and this is the one I grew up with. We weren't allowed to watch the Jim Carrey Grinch growing up, and so How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the cartoon, I watched this every single Christmas Eve, and now my kids watch it every single Christmas Eve or Christmas season. Moving on, guys, we have Dirty Dancing. Now, I hate this movie, so why would I add it to my collection? Well, my wife loves this movie, and every once in a while she's like, hey, let's watch Dirty Dancing. And I'm like, I don't own it. Sorry about that. I don't like that Swayze's like 40-something years old and that girl's definitely like 16. I just don't like that. I don't know. I know they're not actually doing stuff, but like it's implied and it's just weird for me. And I don't know if he's supposed to be 40-something years old, but he is 40-something years old in this movie. So it's just kind of gross. I'm sitting here defending a movie that I bought while also telling you that I'm not a big fan of it. I'm just not. Okay, moving on. We have Paranormal Activity 2. And Paranormal Activity 2, this is the follow-up, obviously, to Paranormal Activity. And this is where they really started to expand the Paranormal Activity universe. And I liked that because they could have easily just made another cheap watch cameras in a house movie. And some people view this movie like that. But I love that they sort of open the universe up and they give you a little more. Not too much so that you know everything. You do want to come back for part 3. But I love that they sort of opened up the universe a little more in this film. And it kept me wanting more. Back when this movie came out, I saw it in theaters and I was like, I want to watch another one. Like they gave me just enough to feel like they expanded on the Paranormal Activity universe, but didn't give me too much so that I didn't want to watch anymore. And I appreciated that. Next up, we have Miracle on 34th Street, another classic Christmas movie growing up in black and white. This is a really fun movie, but I can't show my kids yet because this movie talks about how Santa isn't real, like the entire runtime of the movie, and they all still believe in Santa. So I cannot talk about this movie or show them this movie. So it's one I'll have to just watch on my own for another couple of years. Next up, we have Goosebumps 2, the lesser of the 2 Goosebumps movies. In fact, I don't know if I've watched this one all the way through, but my kids love the original Goosebumps. It's a yearly rewatch in our house around Halloween, so adding Goosebumps 2 to that rewatch list. Next up, we have Johnny Depp in Black Mass. And I saw this one time. I think I watched it on TV. It was like playing on a cable channel somewhere. And I had an okay time with it, but anything Johnny Depp does, I will put on my shelves back there. Justice for Johnny. We'll leave it at that. Next up, we have The Fifth Element. Now, I have not seen this film. Movies that looked like this when I would go to Blockbuster or Family Video growing up, movies that looked like this just were like so far out of the realm of what I was looking for. Like, I like science fiction movies, but it just looks weird. Does that make sense? And so I would just kind of gloss over this movie, but now I own it, and I am looking forward to watching Bruce Willis in The Fifth Element. Next up, we have The Equalizer. I have 2 of the 3 Equalizer movies, and this is the first one. This is the one with Chloe Grace Moretz as well, and I thought she did a great job in this. And overall, I enjoyed this movie. I was never a huge fan, and so I skipped part 2 completely. Part 2 to this day is the only Equalizer movie I haven't seen. Next up, we have The Free State of Jones. Never seen it, but it is Matthew McConaughey, and because of that, I was like, I'll check it out. So I now have The Free State of Jones. All right, guys, next up we have Billy Madison, and Billy Madison is one of Adam Sandler's best films, in my opinion. He has to go back and repeat all 12 grades to actually graduate high school, and I loved that about this movie. Yeah, I had an itch on my ear, and I itched it while I talked about Billy Madison. But it's got great classic lines in it, like, he called the shit poop, and it's also got, did the penguin tell you to do that? So I just think this movie is really good. And of course, you have that moment with Steve Buscemi where he crosses off Adam Sandler's name on his list and puts lipstick on because he was going to be a shooter. It's just got everything. I really love Billy Madison. Next up, guys, we have Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Why do I buy some of the films that I buy? I don't know. But when they're on sale, I gotta have them in my collection. So I'm trying to amass a gigantic collection. I want to be my own family video. So there you go, Abraham Lincoln Vampire. I took the slipcover off because look, all these goddamn stickers. You know how I feel about these stickers. I don't know why the Blu-ray production companies or Walmart or Best Buy or all these other companies that then resell them, I don't know why they put not removable stickers on them. It's annoying. And yeah, I know you can get like stuff and you can wipe off the case and you can take your time, but I don't have time for that. What I have time for is putting this on my shelf and watching it another time. Next up, we have King Arthur, and I think I have seen this movie. Charlie Hunnam and Jude Law doing the whole King Arthur thing. I don't know, I was just on a King Arthur kick, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy every movie that's about King Arthur or every movie about Robin Hood. So I now have King Arthur in my collection. Next up, we have The Invisible, and this is another movie I haven't seen, but I read the back cover. Looked pretty good, about a guy who dies, but he doesn't fully die, and so he's kind of there, but he's in the invisible, and so he's like in our world, but sort of behind the scenes and trying to solve his murder. And that was intriguing. I thought, you know what, this might be a fun movie for my wife and I to watch. It also looked like it was made on the CW. Look at his hair. Yeah, it kind of looks like it was made early 2000s on the CW, but I'll check it out. Next up, we have The Equalizer 3. That's right, the one I don't own is also the one I haven't seen yet, and that is The Equalizer 2. I just ended up finding Equalizer 1 and 3, and I have not found Equalizer 2 in the wild yet. But this movie was fun last year. I had a decent enough time with it. I thought that because Denzel is getting older, they slowed down the action scenes. They slowed down the pace of the movie, and that actually worked for me because it wasn't this John Wick style shoot 'em up movie. Yes, he has a few moments where he is a badass, but because of his age, they slowed down the pace of this film along with the action scenes, and it actually worked for me. Next up, guys, we have Lawless, a movie I've seen once. Didn't love it when it came out, but I do want to rewatch it. It has Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, and Shia LaBeouf. That's the guy's name I couldn't remember and had to look at the case for. But yeah, Shia LaBeouf in this movie. And you know what? He doesn't do as much as he used to do. I know people tried to cancel him, or he canceled himself. He put a bag on his head. I don't really know what was going on there. But Lawless, I remember being a decent enough movie. They're prohibition, and they are making moonshine. So that's what I remember from it. Next up, guys, we have Pearl Harbor. The absolutely not true, but also kind of true story of Pearl Harbor told by Michael Bay. Now, if you're going to have kamikaze pilots blowing up ships at Pearl Harbor, you hire Michael Bay, and that's what they did here. Had a great time with this film. And let's see, is there anything else on the cover we want to talk about? Nope, there isn't. Ben Affleck doing his thing. Moving on, guys, we have Monster House. Now, Monster House is actually a gem in my house. My kids absolutely love watching this movie. I know I've seen it once or twice, but I've heard it in the background in different rooms of my house so many times, and they recently took it off Netflix. And that's the thing about physical media, guys. Nobody can take this from you. I mean, yeah, you could scratch the disc, but outside of that, nobody can take it from you. Nobody can say, hey, that's behind a paywall. You're going to need to pay $2.99 every time you want to watch it. Oh, that movie got popular on Netflix. Let's take it off Netflix, put it on Amazon Prime, and charge everybody $3.99 a month or $3.99 a viewing. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. I dropped Pearl Harbor. I regret nothing. But Monster House is now in my collection, and you don't have to pay for it to a streaming service. You don't have to hope your Wi-Fi is working. You've got it on physical media, and there's something beautiful about that. Moving on, guys, we have Paranormal Activity 3, and that is the third movie in the franchise. I really didn't plan them out to go in order like that, but because they were just stacked in front of me, but here we are. We have Paranormal Activity 3. This, again, did what the second movie did, where it upped the ante of what was going on, added a few more players, but it built the universe and explained events from the first and second film so well. And I believe this is where they introduced Toby in the movie and in the franchise, and that was just, I remember me and my friends talked about Toby did this, Toby did that. It's just fun. So, good times. Next up, oh, well, here we go. We have Paranormal Activity 4. And this is where the Paranormal Activity started to go downhill. I do love the, I think it was an Xbox scene in this movie where you see dots on anything that's moving in the room. And so, in this picture, you see the boy. But in the movie, it, like, touches a ghost or something. And it was creepy. So there were some good camera tricks with this film. And then my buddy Alex Leva pointed out that this is Catherine Newton on the front. And I love her in Freaky and whatever that movie was last year where she time traveled. I don't remember it right now. But she's a great actress. So I'm looking forward to revisiting the Paranormal Activity franchise soon and watching her in this movie again. Moving on, the second Grinch movie we're going to talk about today. And that is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey. But I love this green case. See, when this is sitting on my shelf, between two regular Blu-rays, you're going to know which one's the Grinch. And I love that. I love that. I love when they take just a little bit of time to add a little more flavor to the packaging for the film itself. And this is a classic in my house. We watch it every year. Me, my wife, my kids, we watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. Now, because I'm partial to the cartoon, I think that movie is better. But I enjoy Jim Carrey doing his thing in the Grinch. And there's a lot of jokes for adults that the kids definitely don't get. Moving on, we have Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans in a 2-pack. I owned Wrath of the Titans. It was in one of those mystery boxes. I think I owned the 3D version of it. I no longer own that. It is now in the incinerator. But these movies are now in a 2-pack, and I own them both. And are they great movies? Not really, but I think my son will enjoy them with me eventually. Like, he likes fantasy movies. We've watched the Mummy movies together, so I think he'll enjoy the Clash and Wrath of the Titans movies when we watch them. Moving on, we have Ford v Ferrari, the only movie in my entire collection that I sat down in a theater with my wife's grandmother and watched. The only film, and here it is, Ford v Ferrari. So that's got an interesting memory to it because that's kind of cool that she went to a movie with me. Matt Damon, Christian Bale, doing their thing, building a Ford Mustang, the GT, right? I believe is what they're building in this. And so, yeah, it's just cool that Ford v Ferrari. We got Ferrari last year, and I thought it would throw a lot of shade at Ford for the Ford v Ferrari movie. We didn't. It didn't. It was just like, oh, we'll focus on this one moment in Enzo Ferrari's life, and I didn't like that. Moving on, we have Elvis, and Elvis stars Austin Butler. And this is a movie I think I put on my worst of the year list. I don't know what irritated me about this movie. Maybe it was just the Elvis impersonation. I've never been a Elvis impersonation fan, and that's basically what Austin Butler is doing throughout this film. But, you know, if you watch it and you're like, hey, I want to watch it for the story of Elvis, it's actually really well done. I do have one complaint about this movie still, and that is that they tell the story from Tom Hanks' character's point of view, and he's the absolute villain in this film. And the entire movie, he's talking about, I did the right thing, I was a good guy. And it's just like, wait a minute, no, you were kind of the bad guy. Even by your own words, you were the bad guy. Like, you leave that theater and you're like, yeah, Tom Hanks' character sucked. But he's telling the story, and he's telling everybody how he never did anything wrong. I don't know, I didn't like that. Next up, guys, we have A Clockwork Orange, and I've seen most of this film. I didn't love it, but it is a movie I do want to revisit and watch. My wife tends to like Kubrick movies as well, so we'll probably watch this together. You know, it's a family-friendly film, A Clockwork Orange. Moving on, we have Identity Thief, and actually, this is one of the first movies I watched with my wife when we got together. We were watching movies all the time, as one should do, and so we were watching different movies, and she's like, have you seen Identity Thief? And I hadn't yet, and she had it on DVD, which is a horrible way to watch anything, but I did watch it with her, and I liked it. I thought it was a fun movie, and so I finally found it on Blu-ray, and I've now added it to my Blu-ray collection. I'm not a huge Melissa McCarthy fan. I was going to put it away. I have one more thing to say. I'm not a huge Melissa McCarthy fan. I do love Jason Bateman, though, so the movie works for me. Moving on, we have another Christmas film, and this time it is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and it's another one with a little extra flavor at the top. Again, I'm going to show you guys for dramatic effect. You put this on your shelf. You're looking for Christmas Vacation. Guess what? It's the green one right there in the middle. And I just love that. So Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase. And actually, of the vacation films, I love the 2015 vacation film. And I've never seen Christmas Vacation. So I'm actually really looking forward to watching Christmas Vacation this upcoming Christmas. Here's another Christmas film. We have The Santa Claus, and I think the first two Santa Claus movies are so much fun. I don't own any of them until I bought this first one here. This is another movie that sort of advertises Santa can't be real, but because he turns into Santa, I've showed my kids a couple times. They love it. Yeah, Santa's real. And another Christmas movie, I think the last one here, is Silent Night. This movie came out last year. I did not get a chance to watch it last year. And the thing about Christmas movies is typically I can't watch a Christmas movie outside of the Christmas season. Now, once November 1st through January 1st hit, I could watch Christmas movies the entire 2 months. So there's a lot of Christmas movies that I watch in my house. I just can't watch them outside of that time. So since I missed Silent Night when it was in theaters, I skipped it entirely. I found it on Blu-ray now, but I haven't watched it yet, kind of saving it for the Christmas season. Got a lot of movies to watch in the Christmas season. Next up, we have Zack and Miri, and I'm old enough to remember, because I actually went to the theater to watch this movie, when Zack and Miri had a longer title that I can't see on YouTube, and the reason they didn't put the rest of the title in the Zack and Miri Blu-ray is because they wanted people to buy it and not worry about what it said on the front cover. But actually, this was a really funny movie. I think it was my first, no, I saw Superbad, but one of my first like big exposures to sort of that R-rated hard comedy from Seth Rogen. And I've come to really like that kind of comedy. So I now own Zack and Miri. Moving on, we have Snake Eyes. And I've always had an issue with this film. I love the movie. Nick Cage is great. But I've always had an issue with this film because it says Cage, Snake Eyes. And it even says it on the side. Like, we know Nicolas Cage is in the movie. That's his face. You didn't have to put Cage, Snake Eyes. I feel like he probably had in his contract that when you make the Blu-ray case, it has to say Cage, Snake Eyes. Or the poster for the film, people have to know it's Nicolas Cage. It's like, that's Nicolas Cage. We know. And so it irritates me because then I put this on my shelf and I'm looking for Snake Eyes, as one does, and I'm looking and I'm like, where is Snake Eyes? Oh, it says Cage first, and so it's sort of out of order alphabetically. It's irritating, so. But it is a really fun movie. So if we're talking about the movie itself, you know, a fixed boxing fight, he's a detective. I think he's a detective, that or a private eye. But I really like this movie too. All right, guys, time for the last stack of movies, and the first one up is House of Wax. House of Wax, starring Jared Padalecki, Chad Michael Murray, and Paris Hilton. I remember this movie slightly. I don't remember loving it, but recently I've kind of had the need to watch House of Wax. I'm kind of building up horror movies that I want a refresher on or I've never seen before for the Halloween season, which, fun fact, starts after July 4th. It just does. Next up, guys, we have Dead Silence, directed by James Wan. He actually throws the Saw theme song in the end of this movie when they do the twist reveal. And I like the twist reveal. I like watching this movie with people who haven't seen the movie yet because I think the twist reveal is done really well. And I also think it's sort of a Hitchcock twist reveal. I feel like I've seen that in a Hitchcock film before, but maybe not. I don't know, maybe the Hitchcock Show where somebody had marionette puppets, but Dead Silence. Next up, guys, we have Five Nights at Freddy's, and this was a movie that I thought was fine. I didn't hate it. It wasn't on my worst of the year list, but I wanted it to be a little better. There were some things they didn't explain along the way that I wish we could have gotten answers to, but maybe we'll get those answers in part 2 next year. But Five Nights at Freddy's, I saw it once, did a movie night with it, had an enjoyable enough time with it, wanted it on my shelf, and now I have it. Next up, guys, we have Matchstick Men, and Matchstick Men is one of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies. The first time I watched it was on a Zune. Yeah, on like a little screen about this big on a Zune is the first time I watched Matchstick Men. But I now own it on Blu-ray. It's a movie I've wanted, and it's been on my like look for this movie list for a long time. Finally gave up, just bought it on Amazon, had them delivered it. But it's a good movie. Nicolas Cage going around being the ultimate con artist while someone is also pulling a con on him, and it's a really good movie. Next up, guys, we have Urban Legend, and Urban Legend is actually in my collection because of a conversation I had with my wife. We were driving home one day, and she said, hey, have you ever heard that like you're not supposed to flash your lights at people as they're driving the opposite way if their lights are off because it could be gain initiation? And I was like, that's an urban legend. And she's like, no, it's like a real thing. And I was like, you need to watch the movie Urban Legend because it's in the movie Urban Legend. And so I bought Urban Legend. And actually, you know what? This is a really fun movie, and I'm looking forward to showing her. And then she will know that it is indeed an urban legend. But maybe also it's true. I don't know. Next up, we have Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving was a movie that came out last year that I really enjoyed, but this is the kind of movie you have to wait and watch again in the Thanksgiving season, so I'm waiting for it. I hear Thanksgiving 2 is coming from Eli Roth. I had a really fun time with this. I didn't see the twist coming like a lot of people say they saw the twist coming in this movie. I didn't. So when the killer was revealed, I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I guess if I rewatch it, I'd probably see signs, but maybe when I watched this movie originally, I was just kind of letting it happen to me, and I really enjoyed Thanksgiving. Next up, guys, we have Sleepaway Camp. Watch this one because someone was like, you will never believe the twist ending to this movie. And they were right. You couldn't make the twist ending of this movie anymore. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I'm not going to say watch Sleepaway Camp and get ready for a fucked up Sleepaway Camp twist ending. Next up, guys, we have Enemy starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors of all time. This movie terrified me when the gigantic spider was at the end. Like, I jumped. I'm not a fan of spiders. And it's just like, I know there were spiders throughout this movie, but I did not expect that. I don't know how I went so long in my life not knowing there was going to be a gigantic spider in the last couple seconds of the film, but it scared me. I did like the message of this movie. I liked that he was sort of trying to overcome that other side of himself in the movie, and in the end, he couldn't overcome it, and so the spider sort of represents that side of himself. It was cool. It was really well done, really well told movie. I liked it. Next up, we have Pandorum. Now, there's two things that I love, and I will say that they're probably always going to be on my guilty pleasure list, but it's deep space movies and movies that take place underwater. And somehow, this movie pulls off both. Is it a great movie? No. Is it Dennis Quaid in space and underwater at the same time? Absolutely it is, and I love that about this movie. So, Pandorum, there you go. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Saw it in the theater for the first time, loved the space epicness of it, but then I loved why it's underwater. Like, it's there's a little bit of back and forth to it. I have two more movies to show you. One of them is one of my grails. The other one is the Point Break Steelbook. Now, here's the thing. I love Point Break. Think it's a fantastic movie. Another movie I need to show my wife. She needs to catch up on movies. But there you go. Look at this Steelbook. I could not pass this thing up at all. There's the inside right there. Now, the discs are a little, I don't know. The discs feel like they're a little lazy, but the artwork itself is cool, and getting to see, look at that, it's just gorgeous. So I've wanted this Steelbook for a while. When it first came out, I think it was $40 at Best Buy when they were still selling physical media. However, I bought it yesterday used for $14, and it doesn't have a plastic slipcover, but it has everything else. There's no dents, nicks in it. It looks nice. It looks pretty. It's going to look great on my shelf back there. So Point Break, I now have the Steelbook 4K version of that. Looking forward to watching that. All right. So I've got what I consider to be one of my holy grails in front of me right now, and I'm going to show you guys, and that is Mean Girls. Now, we've talked about Mean Girls on this channel before. In fact, I have the Mean Girls Blu-ray, I have the Mean Girls Steelbook, but now I have the Mean Girls 4K edition, but with the pink case. And for those of you who don't know, maybe you're new to the channel, maybe you've never heard the story before, I bought Mean Girls 6 times in a row, trying to get the pink case from different websites. I bought it. It was advertised with the pink case. They sent me the blue one. I bought it again from another place. They sent me the blue one. I bought it from Amazon. Went to Amazon customer service, said, hey, you guys sent me the blue case. You're advertising the pink. The Amazon customer service was like, that's weird. Go ahead and keep it. We'll send you another one. They sent me the blue case. And they did this over and over and kept telling me to keep them until the point where I had 6 extra copies of Mean Girls, and I gave up my search, and I ended up just handing them out to people who came over to my house. I did. I was just like, hey, you get a Mean Girls. Thanks for coming over. You get a Mean Girls. It was just how it was. But they released a 4K edition of Mean Girls, and it has a pink case, and everything's right in the world. It just took a couple extra years, but I now own Mean Girls. Not a movie I necessarily needed to have on 4K, but a movie I'm very glad I had. And yeah, that's the poster for Mean Girls right there. So I'm a huge fan. All right, guys, I have one last thing to show you. It's not a Blu-ray. It's not a DVD. It's not even a 4K Steelbook. It's a VHS tape, and it is the Blair Witch Project. I'm actually really excited to watch this because it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, and my buddy Alex Leba was like, hey, there's only 2 movies that I would buy on VHS. One is The Ring, the other is the Blair Witch Project. So Alex, you convinced me to buy this VHS tape. It was $6, $6 well spent. I now own the Blair Witch Project on VHS. I'm excited to watch it, but I won't watch it on VHS anytime soon because it is the 25th anniversary of the Blair Witch Project this year. And in September, I'm going to Burkittsville, Maryland to watch a showing of the Blair Witch Project, and I'm so excited for that. Sometimes it's all I can think about. Sometimes I'm driving to work and I'm like, man, I just want to be in Burkittsville watching the Blair Witch Project. So excited to do that. Going to take a road trip, couple days to do that, maybe make a vlog for the channel. So be on the lookout for that in late September. And those are all the movies I've added to my collection this time around. Guys, I love making these videos, but you know, they're not just about the movies that I've picked up. I'd also love to know what you picked up. So if you picked up Blu-rays, 4Ks, Steelbooks, DVDs, or even VHS tapes, well, throw that in the comment section down below. Let me know what you've collected since the last one of these Blu-ray collection update videos. I love hearing from you guys on what you picked up. And if you've got a story behind some of your pickups, I'd love to know those too. Finally, guys, if you like this video and you want to watch more, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my Blu-ray collection update video, and I love making these because I get to talk about so many different movies at one time. It's always fun. But guys, if you like this video and you want to watch more, maybe you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. And I've got all of my Blu-ray collection updates right there, and I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.